How did a volcano going off in Iceland cause the French Revolution? Well, I'm very glad that you asked. This is the Lakey Fissure and it's towards the southern end of Iceland, and in 1783 in June it exploded, and it kept exploding for about 8 months. And the whole time it's spewing lava and poisonous gases, sulphur is going absolutely everywhere, and it completely devastates Iceland. Most of the livestock died, and it's thought about a quarter of the population of Iceland actually died of starvation. Because not only are all of their animals dying, but the sulphur and the gases stay in the air, and it makes it almost impossible to grow anything. Now, if you were around in 2010, you might remember when another volcano in Iceland blew up and it affected the entire world. Because no planes could go anywhere because the air was too thick with the gases that had been released. Right, you remember that? So that was one big, huge boom. But what happened in 1783 went on for like 8 months. And it impacted everywhere, not just Iceland. Iceland was completely buggered, but it was also the British Isles. It was France, Germany, Italy. It got as far as Egypt. Even in America, Benjamin Franklin is writing that there's this terrible fog in the air and it won't seem to clear. There are loads of descriptions of it, but this is how the British naturalist Gilbert White described it. The sun at noon looked as black as a clouded moon and shed a rust-coloured ferruginous, that's a good word, light on the ground and floors of rooms, but was particularly lurid and blood-coloured at the rising and setting. At the same time, the heat was so intense that butcher's meat could hardly be eaten the day after it was killed, and the flies swarmed so in the lanes and hedges that they rendered the horses half frantic. The country people began to look with a superstitious awe at the red, lowering aspect of the sun. Slight detour. Ferruginous means it contains iron oxides or rust. So we've all just learnt a new word as well. But you get the idea. There's this really dense red fog that's all over Europe and has got as far as America and parts of North Africa. Now, volcanic eruptions can have severe impacts on weather patterns for anywhere between 2 to 4 years. Now, the French Revolution didn't really get cracking until 1789, but there was a long burn into that. It had a long fuse. It wasn't like the people of France just woke up one morning and thought, bollocks to this, we'll start cutting everyone's heads off. One of the major triggers for what happened was starvation. Year after year, the harvest fails and prices start to skyrocket, and all because of this bloody volcano. The government tries to do things like bring in salt taxes, which just make everything worse. There are multiple smaller riots before the big ones of 1789, and they're all about food and not having enough to eat. So not only are folks starving, but conspiracy theories start to come out as well. Theories that the rich people are hoarding all the food and just keeping it away from the poor deliberately. Marie Antoinette never actually said, let them eat cake, but that came to perfectly encapsulate some of the fears at the time. She was so out of touch with what was actually going on, she just thought everyone could eat cake. And to be completely fair to the revolutionaries, she wasn't going short of a meal. And they were. So in 1789, you get the bread riot, which eventually leads to the Women's March, which eventually leads to the storming of the Bastille, and then it's just a hop, skip and a jump to the guillotines out. Now, would that all have happened if that volcano hadn't gone off? Well, really what we're asking is, would the French Revolution have happened if the people of France had had enough to eat? And the answer to that is probably a resounding no. And that is how a volcano going off in Iceland led to the French Revolution.